earlier records of the anthropological studies in the Asiatic society. We have some rare manuscripts of the castes and tribes of India and the photographs and archival documents of the eminent anthropologists we have exhibited here. So we plan or our motto of this exhibition to promote the research on the anthropological studies, and we welcome the researchers to come here in the Asiatic Society and develop their researches in the area of the anthropological studies. The Asiatic Society is the treasure house of knowledge. So there are several books on anthropology in the collection of the Asiatic Society. From that vast area, we have selected only few very rare books on anthropology for the display. You know, here we have displayed the books by Hutton. He is famous anthropologist. Worked on Northeast also. We have also rare aliens books we have displayed in the tribes and caste-wise shadings. That book also is with us. That was published in 1879. Also we have some reprint books. This is by Railway, the Baika. It's a tribe. It's one sector tribe. Kacharis, tribes and caste of Bengal by Risley is here. The original books is here with us.
So, this is the second day of this seminar. Now, session 2 will start soon, and I would request Professor Rajat Das to come on the dais. Professor Rajat Das will be in chair. He is former professor of anthropology, Vidyasagar University, Medinipur, West Bengal. We have 3 speakers here: Professor Miriam Grossi and Carmen Rial. Please come. Professor Peter O'Leary, please come. Come to the dais, and Professor Aruprotan Bandyopadhyay, please come to the dais. Now I would request Dr. Satyabrata Chakraborty, General Secretary of the Asiatic Society, to come to the dais. Professor Miriam Grossi. Professor Peter O'Leary. Now, Professor Aruprotan Bandyopadhyay. chaired by Professor Rajat Kanti Dash.
Well, I will talk about these 5 moments very quickly because you don't have very time. The first period, I put some data there. It begins with more or less between the 20s and the 60s in the 20th century, and it begins with foreign anthropologists who came in Brazil to study. A lot of them to study in Bahia about Negro population, and anthropologists who came to Brazil to study what you say here in India, tribals, but in Brazil we say indigenous people. In this moment as well, we have some few Brazilian anthropologists who go to study outside. As Gilberto Freire, Darcy Ribeiro, I will show after some images. In this first, the main question I was talking about that. The foreign anthropologists came to Brazil in this moment, and the big influence about North American, French, and England in Brazil. We had this. French mission who came to Brazil with Claude Lévi-Strauss, who in the 30s created the anthropology in São Paulo University as well. In this moment, the anthropology was doing in museums like here, like in other parts of the world. It was very important. And there was the main important question was about to know anthropologists are called to construct the idea of our Brazilian identity, our national identity, because Brazil is a very large country as India, and it was a moment in the history of Brazil that we tried to give the idea of nation, Brazilian nation. Here I put some books from Gilberto Freire. It's the most well-known anthropologist from this period. Then Darcy Ribeiro, another one, Eduardo Galvão, who are some anthropologists who study in United States. Here I put up this classical photo about a lot of foreign anthropologists who were in Brazil in the National Museum. Then you can see Claude Lévi-Strauss, the first one, very young. There is Ruth Langes from United States, Charles Wagner as well from United States. Then after Heloísa Alberto Torres was the first women director of the National Museum in Brazil, Luiz de Castro Farias, and Raimundo Lopes, and Edson Carneiro. As you can see, in this moment, Edson Carneiro was one of the first black anthropologists in Brazil, and then the racial question is very important for us. If I can, I will discuss a little. Well, this is one of the only women. I show you Heloísa Alberto Torres. This is Maria Isaura Pereira de Queiroz. She was in the French way of Brazilian anthropology. She teach in French universities, and she was one of the first students of Lévi-Strauss when he was in Brazil. Well, quickly, the second moment of our history of anthropology in Brazil is in between 64 and 85, who was the moment of the dictatorship in Brazil. Then it was a moment, very complex moment, because a lot of anthropologists, Darcy Ribeiro, were in prison, were persecuted. The anthropologists go on exile in other countries of the world. But in the same moment, because the military who are in power were very nationalist, they want to have a Brazilian science. Then they inverted a lot of money to create the beginning of the formation of PhD formation in Brazil in the 70s. Then it was this contradiction because in one way anthropologists were persecuted, but in another way we began to have money to create new universities and to create this formation, PhD formation in Brazil. It's a very important moment for Brazilian anthropologists where the urban anthropology is created that puts some names of Brazilian anthropologists. The most known is Gilberto Velho from Rio de Janeiro. And it was in this moment that we have a lot of new social movement emerging. It was some new social movement as we listened yesterday about Relika as feminist movement here in India. It was the same in Brazil, and it influenced a lot the anthropology as well. In gender, we have this influence of feminist studies, and from about black and studies and ecological, maybe later we'll talk about environment. It was a very important moment. Then the urban anthropology was an important moment in this second period until 22-25. Then the third period is the moment when we finished the dictatorship, and 88 was the moment where we had the new constitution of Brazil. And this new constitution in Brazil, we name citizenship constitution. It was created by really a very strong movement, and then anthropology changed a lot in this third movement. I put here some names. We had Fernando Henrique Cardoso, who was the president between 95 and 2002. He was a sociologist, married with Ruth Cardoso, who is one of the pioneers of urban anthropology and women anthropology in Brazil. Then they did a lot for anthropology. And after we had Lula, the actual president, but who was president for 8 years, and Dilma Rousseff for 6 years in this moment. And then it was a moment very important for the Brazilian Association, Anthropological Association. Oh, I put in the first slide that the Brazilian Anthropological Association was created in 955. Then we are completely 70 years of our association. But in this moment, ABA, our association, had a lot of work, and it was really, it began something that when we talk about French colleagues or American colleagues, they don't understand why in Brazil our association is not only a scientific association, but it's most an association who pass the bridge between scientific world, university, and the society. Then, in this moment, with the Lula's government and Dilma,
Hello.
Maybe you can listen without, I can talk on that. Then I put here some report.
Hello.
In this moment, before Lula government, we have universities. In Brazil, the best universities are public universities, and we had only public universities, good public universities, in the main capitals, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Porto Alegre, Salvador. And in Lula government, he created new universities, federal universities, in many places in Amazonia, in the north of Brazil, in little cities. Then it was a very important moment, because before of that, only young students who came from middle class and elites could study in the university. And then Lula opened the university in other parts of Brazil, and we created, as well as you have in India, the system of quotas from students from lower class, from black students, for indigenous students, disability students. Now we have a strong movement of trans people to enter in the university. But all of that began with Lula, and it changed a lot the face of the university. Because we have before only, it was a white university, completely white university, teachers, professors, and students. And now we began to change. We have a lot of students of many colors, it's very colorful, our group, and we began to change the professors in the university. But this is another question that ABA is working a lot. Then we have as well, it is a moment when, yesterday I think Professor Schumeta was talking about the internationalization of Indian anthropology. It was as well a very important moment for the internationalization of anthropology in Brazil, for all the science, but for anthropology it was very important.
Hello everyone, I'm honored and quite frankly very humbled to be here today. First I want to just say how incredible it is to have spent most of my fieldwork years here in India over the last 20 years on and off calling this beautiful country my home. So thank you. I'd also like to say that I come here thinking about the past, present, and future. First, we have to think about the ways that I discovered in myself as an environmentalist, as an American environmentalist, that who I was growing up before I even knew very much at all about Indian thought. I discovered in myself and in the very fabric of American environmentalism that there were so many parallels and direct references to Indic thought, and particularly the Bhagavad Gita, which underlie a lot of the environmentalism that in my naivete I thought originated in America. So that's how I understand my identity and my past, is through these ideas of interplay back and forth between our countries, between India and the US, in terms of understanding our responsibilities as humans, but also as a part of our joint environmentality. And I know on the G20 pictures, I've seen it a lot, one planet, one family, one future. And that really says it all. I also want to say that at this very moment, it's very important for me to recognize how incredible it is to see, at the risk of being fired from my institution, where our academic freedoms have been challenged quite a bit, to speak here at the Asiatic Society, which has been a beacon at the center of free thought from a time when academic freedoms are challenged all over the world. So thank you, Asiatic Society, for keeping this beacon alive for many of us. And third, I wanted to say that I'm honored and humbled because of the ways that I think that you all have been inspiring the next generation of ecofeminists and feminist political ecologists in terms of thinking through society here in India, but also the ways that the subalternists have transformed the way that we think about anthropology and social sciences. And to this degree, I also think that there's a lot in terms of anti-colonial things that we can learn as applied anthropologists. That's all my preamble, so I'm sorry. I'm here also to talk about water, which has been the thing that I've specialized in these last almost 20 years. Water is a lens through which we learn about historical fluidity, about choke points and contaminations of the evolving depiction of not just the resource, but also as women as water's bearers, and in their capacity as high-level scientists and decision makers for the crucial material and infrastructural dimensions of our world. Drawing from all of my fieldwork in India, I've thought about how invisibilized, water-oppressed women in Delhi and how we can integrate the insights of them with my experience personally as a female member of water task forces on the OECD, the International Science Council, and United Nations. This exploratory, transscalar, ethnographic fieldwork essentially argues that women's engagement with water and with our water sciences in the world of environmentalism reflects broader challenges and advancements within ecofeminisms and intersectional narratives about gender equity. I want to emphasize a key point about our gender and environmental activism, which has endured and also reshaped in our post-colonial era of thought. The way we talk about women affects the structural barriers our society creates. Sexist, discriminatory structural barriers rob the world of a vast toolkit to combat climate change, or as I enjoy calling it, climate chaos. As the world essentially wrings its hands and expects our saviorship from high-tech scientific innovation, often depicted as led by white, English-speaking, middle-class men with the privilege of advanced degrees, it ignores two things. First, that these technological solutions will always rely on the labor of diverse contributors across sectors and across scales, people who are also very legitimately heroes of this planet. And two, the hope for new solutions is overlooking a vast wealth of ideas already in progress by the diverse, non-traditional leaders of environmental innovation. Leaders like the beloved Chipko protesters, or the women of India's water-scarce Bastia. Our global sisters have existed beyond time and space, and they're all working towards everyday water equity, and to me that also means climate justice. South Asian megacities like Delhi and urban centers like Lucknow, Hyderabad, and Kolkata are one of many areas in the world considered exemplars for new growth and new configurations of intersectional gendered environmental labor. They're host to an over-burgeoning population, vast disparities in basic resources, and myriad environmental dangers like urban heat, air pollution, rapidly changing foodscapes, drastic disparities of wealth, and, crucial to our discussion, insufficient water. Who powers the city, though, and its lifeblood of water? In a city where the few hours of daily water pressure is unpredictable, women of multiple identities become the infrastructure or the pipes themselves to keep the water moving. Yet this work is invisible in the policies and rhetoric and externalized in economic accounting mechanisms. Beyond India, I've documented these trends in depiction of the plight of women in climate change. Contemporary United Nations and NGO depictions are actually common with tropes of women as victim objects of future disasters like famine, which stress their domestic responsibilities. What's not addressed in a lot of this is the global North's complicity in two things. First, anthropogenic climate change. And second, in stripping vulnerable regions of critical care workers who would otherwise invest in the environment. The latter is particularly significant because it recognizes the value and merit of women's environmental contributions as they are, and not as they could be if they were shaped by transnational approaches. Let me make this very clear. While conditions indeed hold women back around the world, in actuality, this literature also holds women back. It masks that women are already impressive, rational, economic actors who are stewards for natural resources, not because they have an invisible connection with nature, but instead because they possess many attributes contrary to our depiction of them in our masculinist labor rhetoric. I want to emphasize that UN Women specifically is able to change this conversation by promoting policies, community engagement, and interventions that instead confirm the existing value of gendered environmental labor, not in diminutive terms, but in terms transnational economic development community can understand better. Recognizing this labor as a linchpin to sustainable economic development is only the first step. Environmental sustainability and environmental justice are often characterized as systemic solutions that are, again, attributed to an elite. But that's where anthropologists can really play into this political and economic situation, because conventionally, anthropologists have disrupted hegemonic ideas like these by investigating the complex social relations that undergird the labor and productivity in environmental systems at micro, meso, and macro levels. So as we explore invisible environmental labor, we can think about how everyday politics of washing the city, of delivering water to our homes and so forth, is undergirded by local forms of gendered environmental labor, with both reinforce but also disrupt traditional water collection, not only in urban India but around the world. I ask how depictions of these truths and responsibilities in these systems obscure, address, and challenge standard narratives of what constitutes production and labor in the sustainable future.
Now, I would request Professor Arup Ratan Bandyopadhyay to deliver his lecture. Professor Arup Ratan Bandyopadhyay.
Respected teacher, Professor Ranjana Rai and Professor Rajat Kanti Das, well-wisher, and my colleagues, respected colleagues and senior colleagues, Professor Patnaik, anthropometry, some observation on the paradigm shift. So what I have talked about the paradigm shift because of the fact that it was given in transition. So I am talking about the paradigm shift because we are using the anthropometry as a technique and using this methodology for various aspects, making a focal theme to the anthropology to understand the evolution, variation, and adaptation. So I need to say about the paradigm shift, is this transition. Okay, the methodology is same, but we are using in the different kind of idea. So before I'm going, I'm talking about this dilemma in anthropology. So all of us know that anthropology has been taken into consideration by many administrative officers, but surprisingly, most of the anthropologists has not been taken in the policy making. But there are some kind of things has been taken that peoples of India by Risley and Pagan tribes, Neolithic Sudan and Nuba. So they are the administrative people, and all we know about Sir H.H. Risley was a commissioner of census. So I'm going to the next, that Indian anthropology is a beginning, you know that from pre-colonial period from 1872, so a lot of people has done the work on anthropology. So most of the things are on the ethnography. So people are very much organized to do this kind of methodology because of this administrative purpose, because of the fact that the people, the English government has to take the taxes so that they should know about their occupations and all. So they have making lots of ethnography with some kind of academic matters. So the challenge has been taken, so as the establishment of University of Calcutta, and you know about the fact from 1921, anthropology being in the Faculty of Science, and the oldest department of anthropology in Asia. So I'm very much proud about it that I'm one of the part of the Calcutta University from my student days to be a faculty over here. So systematic studies, till now the people who are in anthropology is doing the field work. We are not making any kind of subdivision, so every time when we want to do the work, so we do the work of the field work, because I used to talk jokes with my other friends who are in the life science, because I say always that you can take your representative in your laboratory, but we have to go to our representative to the fields, because to know their ecology, to know about themselves, is not a caging animal. Human is not a caging animal. So still now field work is an important one. And yesterday the people has talked about, very rightly, about D.C. Das and Nirmal Chandra Bose, yes. And then I have taken into consideration, I wish that I can take Hitesh Prasad Chattopadhyay. He was a pioneer worker in anthropology, and he studied physics and then came back with W.H.R. Rivers in anthropology. And he was really working with the civic bodies and researches on the jute mills and other kind of things in the post-colonial period. It was a fight between the K.P. Chattopadhyay with anthropology. So K.P. Chattopadhyay was the first professor in anthropology, and posted in University of Calcutta. He started the work in 1923, then he left and then come back again in 1937. So a few of the many contributions of research scholar in this aspect: Risley, Sharat Chandra Rai, D.N. Majumdar, Ayappan, Heimendorf, and Verrier Elwin. So this we can see that 1910 to come up with the 1943. Now Calcutta University, so all of you know the departments of anthropology nowadays in India, as most of them are the alumnus of Calcutta University. So this is the pride of Calcutta University, that right now I feel that 52 universities in India is offering postgraduate. So all of the people, I find Professor Patnaik is here, so P.C. Vishwas is alumni of Calcutta University. This is our pride. And if you think about the northeastern area, Professor B.M. Das, Annoda Bhagavati, Professor Lakhan Mahapatra, all of them, Madhav Goswami, all of them are the alumnus of Calcutta University. So what we find in case of anthropology, the course of actions. So actually the data that has been collected, so what we wanted to know, the extension of the human diversity, the range and the diversity of the particular ethnic group and commonness of the traits. So after that, what we find, the interpretation, and finally we wanted to make some kind of biomarkers. So biomarkers in biological side, and if you think of a cultural marker that we see, it's called material culture, which is a tangible culture, and we wanted to go for intangible culture, which is a behavior. Then is a combinations of this cultural and the contemporary situations. This has been emerged as ethnoarchaeology, contemporary situations and making a kind of association. Next, we wanted to go for the synthesis and critical analysis of the data. So Risley, B.S. Guho, D.N. Majumdar and S.S. Shorter. So P.C. Mahalanobis in this moment was very much interested in anthropometry. So he has recalculated the Risley's data because it was there by the CRL, Carl Pearson's racial likeness, but there was some kind of error, and he taken a new kind of statistics which is called T-square statistics, and he was once interested, and Nensal Anandal, the Director of Zoological Survey of India, he has got many data, and he has talked about these things in Indian Science Congress in 1931. And all we know, the P.C. Mahalanobis founded the Indian Statistical Institute. And this is the past, human past, if you want to know that, say everything is very much needed, and where anthropology is very much needed and evolutionary biology to sociology, archaeology. Right now the anthropology, we think of that there are 4 subdivisions, but these 4 subdivisions are very amalgamated. I don't think they are very much exclusive. These are inexclusive, but because when we just define a human, we cannot define the human biologically only. So cultural part is very much important, because if I used to ask my students that how do you prove yourself a man? So everybody is giving different kind of idea, but I would like to stick on the bipedal erect posture with the chin, and culturally we have man the tool maker, and if you think about the social factors, so marriages are there, so on and so forth. These are the characters that we can take into consideration. So now I'm coming to the paradigm shift. So in a way that we make some kind of paradigm shift from physical anthropology to the biological anthropology, because of the fact that it's more accommodation. Physical anthropology in our mind is on the skeletons mainly, but in biological anthropology we have some kind of idea that with the genetics and the environment, how can it be a kind of association. So human genetics to anthropological genetics, molecular genetics to molecular anthropology, demography to anthropological demography. So yesterday when I was listening, our Vice President Professor Borman was talking about I'm very away from anthropology, chemistry, but I think this molecular anthropology and anthropological genetics has a lot of things to talk about the genetics, because if you don't know the signals, right now we cannot think of anything, because chemistry is always embedded with anthropology. So holistic approach of the anthropology, how much we achieved. So this is a long debate, that holistic anthropology we are talking about. Can we take biological anthropology, social cultural anthropology, all kind of things all together? So I find an example that if I think about an Austroasiatic language, so we can talk about shifting cultivation, Neolithic way of life, avantgarde society and hemoglobin A. So it's a kind of strings that, beats in the strings that we can go with the anthropology. Now, in human evolution, actually humans are genetically uniform species with most variation evident rather than the between population. So what happens, so when actually human has a lots of adaptation needed in course of evolution, when it's a time for Neolithic time and lot of environmental hazards like.
Thanks to the speakers really enlightening us on some issues which we are not very much aware of. Maybe we may take a few questions, very brief. Anybody who is interested in knowing more about what they have spoken may come forward. Please.
We are coming a bit late regarding the Professor Heather O'Reilly. I am just listening the art historical connections between the anthropology and there is a book on the sense of the evolution of arts by T. Thomas Munro. It was published from Cleveland Museum of Art. There, a big chapter throwing out the relation between anthropological studies and the art historical studies. He made a clear vision to post-colonial period of art historical studies. Do you consider his opinion to your subject, the lecture? Arup Babu, just this is childish inquiry. Last picture when you showed the series of men standing or fronting their legs. One book I have come across, Professor J. Brunowski, I think, The Ascent of Man. The book was published outside this India. There he spoke on this particular subject. Do you consider his theories in your topic? Professor J. Brunowski theory. He published a book on the ascent of man. Yeah.
Sir, thank you so much for the question about art history and ethnography. Thank you. I consider art history and the expressive cultures to be a very allied field with ethnography and social sciences. Because how do we understand humanity without understanding the expressive traditions in architecture, in fine art, in the plastic arts, and everything, and especially in the digital culture that many of our youth are creating and inspired by today? All of these things inform not only aesthetically and environmentally when they're environmental pictures being depicted, but also they really tell us quite a bit about clues, about power, about structures, about privilege, and about how we can challenge them. So this one book that you mentioned is not something that I've had the privilege of reading, but I will look into it. In my Eco-Fem lab at the University of South Florida, I work with many students, and if any of you have students who would like to collaborate with me and my students, we look at the ways that environmental pictures, even on social media these days, can demonstrate important clues to the way people are thinking about the environment and the way people are thinking about agency in our environment. So something that's a very simple picture of a river or a waterway, or a picture of a coral reef degrading, or a picture of dead fish on the shores. These are things that we do anthropological and ethnological close readings of. And when taken with the social components of the art, with the words underneath the social media posts, we can really marry these two disciplines quite a bit. And so you're absolutely right that these artistic expressions are very important clues, not only for social scientists, not only for humanistic scholars, but also our job as anthropologists is to help integrate these towards building a future of sustainability that incorporates people and people's beliefs a lot more rigorously. Thank you so much for the question.
Okay, again, thank you so much. I feel you are satisfied with her. So may I? Okay. So which picture you were talking about? I feel that they are not totally anatomically modern Homo sapiens. So I have just given a kind of example that you can see somebody was stooping and somebody is walking erect. So just to show you that how we have come up, and you are talking about a particular theory. Can you remember what theory we were talking about? Not the author, the theory.
On the pages of the book.
Now what is that theory? I'm talking about not the author.
The ascent of man.
Okay.
He explains the ascent of man.
Mhm.
The man moves, lying down, straight, sitting, then move his legs, then move walking, then run away. This is the picture.
So these are the anatomical changes that we have, right? So still now we are doing that kind of thing. If you think about yourself, right? Firstly, you have been in a position just going on the quadrupedal. Then you started with walking, right? Then bipedal. So it's called ontogeny repeats the phylogeny, right? So we also repeat this one in our lifetime, maybe a very shorter kind of time. So it has been taken maybe the millions of years to go there, but you can remember, I feel that in your home, you find a baby is growing with a quadrupedal first, then try to walk, then have a bipedal locomotion. So there was a kind of betray of my picture. So I could not show you that how the foot curvatures are very much important and anatomical modifications is very much important for change over this stature. So that's a kind of problem.
We have little time left, so I'll have to sum up somehow, my own way. From what I could gather from the concept note prepared by the society, that this post-Congress will enable us to take stock of the anthropological knowledge in its current form, its application areas, its historical trajectory, and to get a first idea about the Asiatic society in promoting the knowledge of anthropology over time. I hope the three speakers have done a good job, and we have been considerably benefited from their deliberations. Professor Miriam Grossi, the construction of Brazilian anthropology, the growth of Brazilian anthropology, she actually tried to trace it or divided it into 4 periods, if I correctly remember. The initial stage about the constructions of Brazilian national identity and anthropology's role in it, just the incipient form. It was yet to take a shape. Professor Grossi has given a vivid account of the growth of Brazilian anthropology in the light of contributions made from different quarters, different sources, anthropologists of repute, among whom French anthropologists spearheaded by Lévi-Strauss dominated to an extent. She also spoke about state operation, introduction of anthropology in Brazilian universities, urban anthropology, new social movements, and so on. Next phase, she tried to explore how Brazilian anthropology has expanded, leading to the formation of the Brazilian Anthropological Association, anthropology coming under expression of the or expansion of the national system of public universities, introduction of quota system, something which we may be interested in international exposures, anthropological representation covering all sections of population. This is something which is important to us also, that could we reach all sections of population in our, while trying to expand anthropology in different fields. It is heartening to note that the growing demand for anthropological expertise during that particular period, but I am a little skeptical because this same demand could not be sustained for a long time, which is probably more evident during the fourth period, which is a period of growing complexities in view of the political turmoil and violence, and as a result, anthropologists are required to testify their credentials and even subjected to retrogressive and conservative forces in power, as well as a growing apathy of the government following lack of investment in education and science in general. Particular attention was drawn, our attention was drawn to COVID management or mismanagement, leading to genocide of indigenous peoples and population. Most of us are probably aware of that, the Brazilian situation. Now, what is of particular interest to me is the actual moment, that is 2023, when young anthropologists have come in a good number, and have started working in public places. Probably in that way, it has paved the way for anthropologists entering into the field of national leadership. Professor O'Leary spoke on environment, raising pertinent issues which are everybody's concern, not simply the concern of anthropologists or, for that matter, environmentalists, but it's the concern of all of us. Impact of high-tech scientific innovations and encroachment into the domain of environment in very many ways. Direct effects on women, impact of economic advancement and the meaning it carries with the young. She has put greater emphasis on increasing participation of anthropologists in environmental movement, and probably we should, all of us should actually join in her plea. I can remember that William Jones, the father of Asiatic Society, described Asiatic Society's focus on man and nature. Later, Herbert Risley, in one of his contributions to the Journal of the Asiatic Society, laid emphasis on the place of man in nature. Probably these still carry some meaning, some relevance in the present context. Professor Orup Ratan Bandyopadhyay spoke about anthropometry, some observations on the paradigm shift. While doing that, he laid stress on policy research in anthropology, which calls for methodological transformation, as is particularly evident in the field of application of anthropometry. He took the long route the contributions made by anthropologists of repute at its formative phase till today, when it has taken a more or less formal shape. Here, the intricacies of biological anthropology, genetics, has come for special emphasis by him, and it is quite natural since he works primarily in the field of human genetics and biological anthropology. But to his credit, it may be said that he was not simply confined to biological anthropology, but anthropology on the whole tried to see it in the total perspective of anthropology as it is today. All in all, the session is quite lively. Personally, I am much benefited from it, and my special thanks to Dr. Satyabrata Chakraborty for inviting me to chair this session and thereby give me an opportunity to associate myself with this post-Congress and enlighten myself. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And tea has already been served, so we are not going for any break. And session 3 will start soon. So we have 2 names here as speakers, but I think the first one, the Professor Mari, she's not here. So I'd request Professor Pinak Tarukdar to come on the dais. I would request our General Secretary, sir, to please come on the dais to felicitate Professor Ranjana. I have already announced. Please, Mr. Tarukdar. Yes, I think so. Professor Mari Wallace. Mari Wallace? She is absent. Now, General Secretary Dr. Satyabrata Chakraborty will felicitate Professor Ranjana Roy, who will chair this session 3. Now, Professor Pinak Tarukdar, our General Secretary, will felicitate. So, Professor Pinak Tarukdar, please come. Oh, that's Professor Tarukdar is from North Bengal University. Of course, Department of Anthropology, I think. Please.
Talk today is going to be a little bit a kind of discourses between indigenous and scheduled tribe population, because we have been working long. We are also having another term, indigenous population. But interestingly, I suppose you may be wondering that the term indigenous population is not accepted by the government of India. And my discourse will be that why there is a connotation, so why the government of India still now are not ready to accept the term very specifically, indigenous population. Still we are using the scheduled tribe, being constitutionally, and tribal population. I would like to express the entire connotation in the perspective of North Bengal region, because our main aim of focusing and exploring something from micro to macro, keeping that thing in mind, I have just started to make this perspective in the North Bengal region to let you know that why there is still confusion between the term of indigenous population and scheduled tribe population in the perspective of North Bengal and even in the wider perspective of India. Stated very categorically that the population living in the distinctive area before the creation of modern state would it be in the pre-colonial, colonial or the post-colonial period. That is one of the first confrontations which is made with this definition. Followed by UN categorically stated that indigenous populations have in common a historical continuity with a given region prior to colonization and a strong link to their land. That means historical continuity should be there prior to colonization. Now I'd like to refer some of the very brief part, I think most of you know, regarding understanding the term of indigenous. First, self-identification as indigenous population at the individual level and accepted by the community as their member. Because among the indigenous population it's very easy, face-to-face contact in a simple life, and it's very easy for them to identify who are the allied people, who are the outside the community. So that makes them indigenous population exclusive and very much the member can recognize very easily with each other because of the close contact with each other. Historical continuity with pre-colonial and pre-settler societies. At the point I have already narrated, it comes once again, the continuity should be there before the establishment of the colonial era or colonial period. Strong link to territories and surrounding natural resources, and that should have to continue even before the colonial era. I just would like to mark that point because that is the point which makes the main confusion between the term of indigenous and scheduled tribe in the perspective of North Bengal and as well as in the perspective of India as a whole. Distinct culture, belief, and form of non-dominant group of society. These are common characteristic features through which we can be able to figure out who are the indigenous. The main objective of the present study to identify the North Bengal indigenous population and inhabiting in the defined territory of North Bengal since the pre-state days, along with the confirmation of most self-sustained characteristic features. Because the point to be noted, the pre-state days is very much important. Now, let me get you more regarding the brief profile of the region. North Bengal geographically is the northern part of the state West Bengal. It's divided with the river Ganges and it comprises with different kind of landscape starting from Himalayan hills, sub-Himalayan region, plains are recognized and plains are there. These Himalayan hills, sub-Himalayan region and the plains are recognized as hill, terai towards the plains. These are the terms through which it can be easily recognized. It includes 8 districts starting from Coach Bihar, Jalpaiguri, Darjeeling, North Dinajpur, South Dinajpur, Malda and newly added district Alipurduar, Kalimpong after the bifurcations of the Jalpaiguri and Darjeeling district respectively. The formation of these districts are very much important. These are being made in the colonial and even in the post-colonial era. That means some of the districts have already there, some of the districts have been made during the colonial period and after we get independent some of the districts have been made. So right now this is the structure of the North Bengal region. Some very brief ideas just would like to give you. The first one is Coach Bihar. It was a priestly state actually and it is transformed from kingdom to state and from state to the present status of district in 1950. So it belongs to the Coach kingdom and there is also history which has a direct link with one of the very significant indigenous population, if we use the term indigenous, known as Rajbangshi. The next one, Jalpaiguri, was attributed in the status of separate functional district in 1869. That means it's even in the colonial era. On the amalgamation of the Western Duars district with the Jalpaiguri subdivision of Rampur. This Western Duars district has its own history. At a point of time it was belonged to the country Bhutan. So that means you can understand that political boundary because there are lots of wars in between the British with the Bhutan, the British people with the Nepal. So that's why some of the regions where belong to Bhutan came with the British and once it came with the British, it's recognized within the Greater Bengal. The British Bengal came with the British. So these are some sort of very, very significant history which makes the
Want to know about the tribe Ashura? Are they Bhumiputra or they have been migrated?
Ma'am, that I said Oshu Shantal, Oda, Munda. Their own original inhabitation place is Chotnagpur. So during tea garden establishment, they have been migrated during colonial period. So colonial people, induced them for necessary migrations to join the tea garden laborer. So they are not the Bhumiputru in a sense that I have narrated. They have come from Chotnagpur area, not the Bhumiputru of North Bengal.
And we are very nice talk that we have, and earlier also Shukanta Chaudhary had talked about the same sort of thing, and they have actually named the problem between the eyes. And whatever we talk about tribe and indigenous, both the terms are aftershock of colonialism. And it was, we didn't have any term like tribe earlier to the British period. British wanted to keep every person in a pigeonhole. That's why there were the censors, and the term tribe was actually made by them. And we are still don't know what to do with it. And then there are controversies which he has very well documented, shown, especially in the perspective of North Bengal, where there have been a lot of tribal people who have been taken over there to work in the tea plantation, and now they have made their home there. So that is another aspect that he has talked about. And then the indigenous, then after the tribe, the term tribe, if we anthropologists, we go for field work, and if you go among the tribes and you ask, say for example, a name of a tribe is Juang, and you ask them what does Juang mean, they will say that it means mankind. And if you ask a Ho, another person, or Munda, what it means, they will all say it means in our own language mankind. So they knew that they were mankind, and we who were not living isolated in places like in forest and in hilly areas, they had their own social system, and those who were outside, we called them by their name like Munda, by their name like Juang, or any other tribal name that they had. But then they were together into tribe, then came indigenous, which came with the UNESCO, where they had termed them indigenous. And you must be knowing the famous anthropologist Anthropology, who had vehemently said that we are not, the people who are here, we cannot call them indigenous, like in America, where they were people, and there were really indigenous people whom the white colonials had really wiped out, almost. So these controversies are going on, and I'm really very glad to listen to Professor Pinang Taroktar, who has explained it very much, and I don't know, I'm very old, so how long I will live, I don't know, but I think it will continue for a long time, this controversy of indigenous, tribal, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, things like that, because there's the string attached. You get benefits. So you get benefits from the state, so it will be very hard to do away with those distinctions. Though yesterday we had heard that most of the, at the present moment, India is in a better position because people get meal. Those who are below poverty level, they get free meals and others. But I don't know, this sort of controversy will go on. And I think it is the duty of us, the anthropologists, to try to solve the problem. Thank you very much. Thank you, Purna. Thank you very much.
We are going for the valedictory session. Dr. Shatyabrata Chakraborty to come on the dais.
So with the kind permission of our research officer, Dr. Shakti Mukherjee, I have been privileged to make a few modifications for this last session. We are just on our last leg. After valedictory session, there will be lunch break and then heritage tour. The valedictory address will be delivered by Dr. Kollan Chakraborty, who is already here. May I just request Dr. Chakraborty to please come. This session will be presided over by Professor Somen Patnaik. He is already introduced in this gathering. Need not repeat it, please. During the inauguration, Professor Vasudev Burman, our Vice President, he represented the council as well as the President, who is right now out of the city. I would request Professor Vasudev Burman also to come on the dais. And the final dropping of the curtain is done by the thanks giver, Dr. Shumita Chaudhary. You will do that. Please come. As a symbolic gesture, may we, with your kind permission, sir, the chairman of the main body of the IUAES, Professor Junji, we will not repeat it, excepting Dr. Kollan Chakraborty and Dr. Shumita Chaudhary. So, I would request our research officer, Dr. Shakti Mukherjee, to perform this precious job. Also to honor our President, yesterday we have deprived him being an insider. Still he is an insider, but for ceremony's sake. Now Dr. Shumita Chaudhary. And
distinguished dignitaries on the dais and the distinguished audience. I come at the end of the marathon sessions and shall plunge directly to the topic, because this discussion about tribe and the non-tribe, included and excluded, scheduled and non-scheduled, is obviously a colonial invention. And I would consider that all of us were tribal once, inhabiting the same continent of ideas. However, as Matthew Arnold would say, now there are veils of tears among us. I mean, barriers of misunderstanding. And we have been banished from that shared continent. And possibly the task is retribalization, which is the recovery of ecological consciousness against the technification, globalization, and biocultural reductionism of the world. And when looking at the theme of the seminar, Roots of Indian Anthropology, but it is being hosted by the International Union and the World Anthropological Congress. We should have the global perspective as well. And so the roots of Indian anthropology are closely interwoven with the roots of global anthropological ventures. And so therefore one can hardly divorce these. But talking about the background of the Orientalism and the colonial venture in anthropology, one should recall Hegel, who had spoken about the inadequate symbolism of Indian culture and civilization, in which there was an attempt to divinize the finite and finitize the divine, and the Indian culture fell between both the stools and lost its steerings. And then came Paul Hacker, the scholar of Advaita Vedanta, who said that the Logos seed is completely barren in the Indian soil. It can bear flower and fruit only when it is transplanted to the soil, fertilized by the Judeo-Christian thought of rationalism and naturalism. One also recalls the conversation between Johnson and Boswell, when Boswell presented him with the book on the voyages to the South Seas by Captain Cook. Johnson said, "Don't cant in defense of savages." Boswell said, "But they have the art of navigation." Johnson's replied, "Well, even a cat can swim, a dog can swim. They also have the art of manufacture. Well, even a child with nails can scratch, and even a cat can scratch." So, the perception of the colonial cultures for the colonized cultures does not necessarily tell us about the roots of Indian anthropology, because the venture was also subject to controversy, because even as people like Hacker and Hegel were talking about their version of Orientalism, there were people like Heidegger who spoke about the need to look at Europe as a land of sunset.
Friends, let me profusely apologize for a mistake that I have done due to oversight. We had in the program enlisted guest in chief, Professor Sukant Chaudhary. I forgot to announce his name. Please come on the dais. For this function, he was our guest in chief, Professor Sukant Chaudhary from Lucknow. And you confirm that you have apologized. I mean, the apology I have asked for, you have granted it. Okay, thank you. Very much, the chair and the distinguished dignitaries, delegates, and dear students. So, we are all, what should I say, involved in the whole thing since long. The World Congress, those of you who could not attend, it was largely attended by about more than 400 delegates from 70 foreign countries and about 800 Indians. So about 1,000 people attended, where we had about 170 sessions, panels with 1,500 papers, presentations, 6 plenaries besides one inaugural and briefly. It was a grand success. It was held after 45 years. Then we started, as the chair today, Professor Patnaik said, we started the pre-congress from our university, Lucknow University. That was in 22 March. And it is now ending in this November. So for about roughly 1.5 years or a little more than that, we are continuing these programs. And it is great to have this program here in the Asiatic Society. Why it is great? We are normally doing these conferences, congresses in universities, not in an institute. So this is an institute of repute which we have been teaching, where while teaching Indological approach, you have 5 types of Indology. The first one is British Indology, that is by William Jones, where you teach it, and I have been teaching since so many years, 35 years this Indology. First time I am visiting Asiatic Society, so for me it is great. So that's why it is very important that we are having it in the Asiatic Society, and its General Secretary, Dr. Chakrabarty, through his address, the first address yesterday, we visited what is the Asiatic Society through his speech, through his address, very informative, so we are very grateful to him. Now coming to this, I just can't say that what is this from colonial to this. Yesterday we discussed, but I may add a few points there, from colonial to the contemporary. But the contemporary has to be something called post-colonial, A, and B, decolonizing. We must emphasize on decolonizing. So what kind of subjects, topics could be there in decolonizing? We are not doing it. Yesterday I said I will not talk about loopholes and weaknesses. Many loopholes and weaknesses in the departments of anthropology and sociology both. They are all doing researches on subjects which we started in the colonial era. What about post-colonial? Why? So what we have taken, I have taken a few notes yesterday itself, but I could not say that debates on religious conversion should be there. Religious conversion debate, they are very old, but they are now currently very, very important from a state from which I have come, Uttar Pradesh. A lot of these kind of problems are coming up. Then capitalist market transformation in light of globalization. Anti-colonial nationalism, that is also very important. Urban experiences and historicities, citizenship and migration, resistance and hegemonic power effects, gender relations are going on, domestic intimacies, which we are debating on here, like live-in relationships, same-sex marriage, all these kind of things, which we are debating upon. What will happen? I am talking about Indian society here. Not everything can be generalized. What should happen? What is the court saying? What people are saying? And what is required? What is the percentage of people who are interested in that? These are also important things. We are not biased. We are not one-sided. But we have to concentrate on this. So what I think from colonial to present means post-colonial, decolonizing, and something which is really contemporary deconstruction, these kind of researches should be advocated in the universities and the institutes which are giving this thing, and the funding agencies, government funding agencies, I will not name them. There should not be any agenda that all the time you keep on having impact assessment of government programs, but you should do these kind of things also, because these will produce some policy matter. These will definitely throw some light to the judiciary, because judiciary thinks that, judiciary behaves that it is experts on everything. It is expert on anthropology, sociology, chemical engineering, everywhere. But it is not. So if we research on these kind of subjects, if we promote these kind of subjects, then probably we can throw light on policy making as well as judiciary. Thank you very much, particularly to Satyavrat Dada and all the members of Asiatic Society. Thank you very much.
Customarily, ceremoniously, let us also have the final blessings from the chairman of the main body.
Everybody, colleagues, and particularly Mr. Secretary General and the colleagues who worked hard for organizing this seminar. As the president of the IUAES-WAU, I deeply appreciate all the efforts and collaboration for this opportunity. As the IUAES-WAU, I've been always trying to organize space, forums, seminar, conference, and so on, a place to discuss and think about together about one thing. One thing is that for what is going to live, how to all of us think about our lives and this world. So it's a very big subject. Anthropology is a very subject, as very important but broad. So there are a lot of diverse disciplines, diverse studies, topics, themes, and so on. As you see, there are so many people, scholars, got together for this seminar to discuss various, very broad topics. But always we are trying to teach to some kind of better understand that how this world is this way, and why this life is this way. And through this location at the Asiatic Society, we can know just small portion of this life, but that is just valuable kind of knowledge to this society. So we are always trying a lot of meetings and so on. Here in India, and before that we organized other meetings and so on at Mexico, in Croatia, before that Poland, before that Brazil, and before that we went to Canada, and before that again to Croatia and Bangkok, Japan, UK, and so on. And the point is that we should create that kind of discourse between our webs, the discourse, conversation, research, and so on. And of course, it's difficult our purpose to create a voice, anthropological voice, and this is very difficult, because we think about the one anthropological voice, but it cannot be single voice. It's always diverse. So in order to be diversity, we need to have varied of a lot of materials. Well, we need to talk a lot, but we are always trying to have some kind of single voice, and it's impossible. It's really impossible to be single, to have a single voice. Still, we need to try to become something always. Anthropology is a kind of science of becoming, I should say. So we are trying to approach something always through very complete and very diverse topics. So on this seminar, I appreciate very much Professor. I really appreciate this. Takes a lot of effort, a lot of sources and so on. And behind that, the Congress organizer, Professor Knight, it took a lot of effort, energy, and everything. But I really appreciate anything you did. Thank you very much.
Friends, we are here for the 2 days, yesterday and today. And as I told you yesterday, Asiatic Society is actually, as a member of the society, I feel very happy that this post-Congress World Anthropology Congress 2023 has been organized here. This is the place, or this is the organization where Anthropological Survey of India was actually, through its endeavor, the survey was established in the early part of the 19th century. And during these 2 days, I am happy to say that the proceedings were very well organized, and people from other disciplines also could understand the important aspects of anthropology, as far as I can say, being a student of
other discipline, some other discipline. I wonder whether the main principal issues of anthropology are being taught at the school level and higher secondary level. I have no idea. But following these 2 days deliberations, I feel that the main aspects of anthropology should be taught in class 9 and 10 and classes 11 and 12. This is my feeling. And on behalf of the society, I thank all the delegates, participants, chairpersons for taking their roles in very good manner and enrich the audience and also I feel themselves with different aspects of anthropology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now the turn for the President of the session, Professor Soumyanuman Patnaik, to make few observations and comments.
When the last day of the Congress, main Congress, was over on 20th in Delhi, and I was coming back from the conference hall to my department, my legs did not work properly. I told 2 of my volunteers, walk with me, because I am having the symptom of a 1,000-meter race sportsperson who falls when the target is achieved. Today, after attending the valedictory address, I am feeling loss of words, primarily listening to Professor K.K. Chakravarti's outstanding coverage of the contemporary issues. Truly befitting for the occasion. A valedictory is not the repetition of what has been already said. And as a chairperson, I feel humbled and privileged to have been a part of this prestigious lecture which Professor Chakravarti gave. I will just talk about 3 themes which most of us will carry it home. His point of recovery of environmental consciousness is so true, the Indian tradition, that we have been continuously connected to the environment, to the nature. We have missed it at some point of time. The disconnection has come up and we have realized it and have carried it forward. He also raised very clearly that the Asiatic society, when you are here, you are virtually sitting on the gold mine of data. And the office bearers of Asiatic society have really worked hard to conserve it, to expand it, to make it more meaningful and lively for the contemporary generation. And therefore, I'm overwhelmed that the final event took place at an institution which is known not only in India but in the international terrain. Thank you, Professor Satyada, for allowing us to organize it here, and all words will be less if I say anything in praise of this golden opportunity. The post-Congress, we also held it in Hyderabad, and I was just finding out that most of the intellectual capital here in Asiatic society is very, very erudite, seasoned,
who have seen the life and who have seen how life unfolds. So for my young friends, I don't know whether I am young or old, I don't want to comment on that, but my students, those who are here, if they discover one piece of advice from any one of them, the life will be highly promising. Professor Chakravarti talked about some of the important metaphors. Metaphor of the rock art, how it is a window to human consciousness. The metaphor of the roots, the silk route, the spice route, the sea voyages, how they demystify some kind of tribal, non-tribal distinction. And finally, he has also hinted and suggested what next if anthropology has to benefit greatly from such an international platform. Collaborative, participative research in a transnational and in a partnership mode, participatory mode, where the informants and the people who are the stakeholders, they become equal partners in the knowledge production. And that is something which we are looking forward. And finally, I would like to say, we have among us some of the office bearers of IUAES. Professor Junji Koizumi, the President. Professor Sumita Chaudhary, the Vice President. Professor Buddhadev Chaudhary, the Honorary Fellow of IUAES. Very rarely such honor is conferred on scholars. Maybe I do not know who else is from India these days. I only know Buddhadev Da as an Honorary Fellow. Professor Miriam, the Vice President-elect for the next 4 years. She is with us. Professor Felipe from Brazil, he is sitting behind, and he is the Chairman Council of Commissions. And Heather O'Reilly, sitting, one of the Vice Presidents, young Vice Presidents, and one of the organizing committee members of the next Congress, that is South Africa Congress. I'm sure all of you I'm sure that all of you have enjoyed both the Congress and the post-Congress in two capitals. Calcutta was the capital of India till 1911, and it was shifted to Delhi in 1911 to the same viceregal building where you held your conference. And Calcutta is still the cultural and intellectual capital where we have all assembled together to take a pause and find out how human experiences could be made more meaningful from the past, about the future, about the present, so as to face the future more meaningfully. All my best wishes to the international delegates, and all my sincere gratitude to my dear friends from different parts of India, and sincere thanks to Asiatic Society and its office bearers, to the Vice President and the General Secretary, Editor, the Treasurer, for giving us this opportunity to showcase the best of India on an international platform. Thank you so much.
The program that has taken place for the last 2 days, I was terribly afraid because of the impact of puja, post-puja, and today being Lakshmi Puja in all the Bengali households. it is almost a compulsory item. And I know some of them who have joined later have performed it because they cannot brave to deny the Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. So therefore we are here and see the position of the hall. Normally, at the end of the day, in any seminar, national or international, population slightly, what should I say, sickens, thins out. But look at the audience here, it is still enlivened as the main theme was there. Marginalities, uncertainties, we have overcome everything. Enlivening the past, already we have enlivened you by projecting our past, and now envisioning the future, it reflects from the audience of today. It has covered your main theme as well as the theme chosen for the post-Congress, the roots of Indian anthropology, transition from the colonial period to the present. Professor Kalyan Chakraborty has done it so marvelously well, no word can match to thank him for this job. I would only wind up by pointing out that when I had assumed the responsibility of the General Secretary of the Asiatic Society way back 2016 May, the immediate task for me was to present the annual report next year. And in that annual address, I had mentioned in one place, I repeat, the colonial rulers had a definite administrative compulsion and political agenda for cultivating the people around and their societies and cultures in depth and in very many specific areas of interest. Their purposes were more than served. Their purposes were more than served, but our responsibilities eventually have been compounded many times more in order to generate fresh knowledge in many aspects of the broad domain of science, art, history, initially identified by Sir William Jones. How do we fulfill this target? If we reiterate the pledge that we have already taken through the preamble of our great Constitution. All of you know it, still let me recapitulate. We the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves. It was not given to us by any other persons or nations or countries. We give to ourselves the Constitution. We must faithfully stick to its every word. Of course, there was some amendment later on in 1976 where it was added, the secularism, etc., etc. But given the preamble intact, if we can, as professional anthropologists, at least give credence to every word that has been ensured for fraternity, equality,
and all kinds of rights, privileges through our performance of our roles in various ways, either at theoretical anthropologist or active anthropologist, action anthropologist, by whatever name you call them to be, but ultimately they are anthropologists. So finally in Shakespearean style we will say, come hither, come hither, come hither. Here shall issue no enemy, but a repository of human knowledge. Thank you very much.
I have a great pleasure to convey vote of thanks on behalf of IUAES-WAU Asiatic Society and on my personal behalf to Professor Junji Koizumi, outgoing President IUAES-WAU, Professor Felipe Fernandez, Chair, Council of Commission, Professor Miriam Brossi, Professor Hita Roli of IUAES, who have come all the way to India, Kolkata, to make the post-Congress event successful. I would also like to acknowledge the names of Professor Shapun Kumar Pramani, President, Asiatic Society, Professor Basudev Burman, Vice President, Asiatic Society, Dr. Satyabrat Chakraborty, General Secretary, Asiatic Society, Professor Sujit Kumar Das, Treasurer, Asiatic Society, and Professor Ranjana Roy, in charge Anthropology Section, Asiatic Society. I would also like to mention the names of Professor B.P. Sharma, Director, Anthropological Survey of India, Professor Subhadra Channa, outgoing Senior Vice President, IUAES, Professor S.M. Patnaik, President, 19th IUAES Congress. I would also like to convey my thanks to Professor Ajit Kumar Dando, former Director, Anthropological Survey of India, Professor Rajat Kanti Das, President, Indian Anthropological Society, Professor Buddhadev Chaudhary, former B.R. Ambedkar Chair, University of Calcutta, Professor Shukanto Chaudhary of Lucknow University. Apart from the significant contribution of a number of delegates who have made this event successful, the important contribution of the staff members of the Asiatic Society may be mentioned in this regard. We are also grateful to other participants who have made this today's event successful. Thank you. Today is the Lakshmi Puja day. The happy Lakshmi Puja to all of you. Namaskar.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल वंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे